So let me start with the introductions. Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
Today we have, hi, good afternoon. Today we have Jay, Bakchalahai, Radhash Vrishna, Vishal Lisa. I know I messed up your name, but it's okay to call him Jay, so that will help all of us a little bit. Thank you for that. Anyways, Jay is an expert in web design, computer development. His expertise is responsive design. Responsive meaning, that's compatible with mobile devices and websites. He's a JavaScript developer, certified, and also certified in C and .NET. So .NET is a database. And today he's going to share with us a little bit about his knowledge, some hands-on examples, and that will hopefully give us all insight into the inner workings of everything in our technological lives, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's a website we go to, Twitter, Facebook. All of these technologies are enabled by methods, programs, techniques that Jay is intimately familiar with. So he's a experienced teacher and instructor in these areas. So I think we're in excellent hands. Jay, if there's something you'd like to say in addition, please go ahead and feel free to begin. Let me also make you co-host.
Yes. Hi. Hello, folks. Let me quickly go ahead and share my screen here once he makes me co-host.
See. Okay, I try now.
Let me see. Share screen. It's still Ricardo. There's a second J. That's me as well. So you need to make both of them co-host.
Of course.
Sorry.
See, that's already taking advantage of technology. You were logging in from one device and presenting from the other device. All right, let me find you, Jay.
So it's because like
there you are.
One of them stops working, the other one keeps running, just in case. So yes. I prefer it that way.
So I can't make you co-host, but I think someone is making you co-host now.
Okay.
Yeah. For some reason, I can't make Jay co-host. So whoever made him co-host, you can search for Jay.
It has
J-A-Y.
I think Felipe is online.
Okay. There. Okay.
Has to do it.
You're good. You're good now.
Oh, okay.
Co-host.
Okay. Share screen. Oh, there you go. It's coming up now. Okay. Hello, folks. Hi, I'm Jay. You can see my name there. You could, if you want to know more about me, you just Google my name. That's a pleasure. So that's my introduction. Myself. Yes. Okay. Yes. So perfect. Okay. So, folks, what I was saying, there's still that joining sound. I don't think there's a way to disable that, right?
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Okay.
I think there might be a way, but I think, next time we'll do the co-host, won't make that sound, so we can just look out and do it manually.
Yes. So, folks, just get used to the joining sound. We'll figure it out later. That's there. So, once again, I'm Jay. I'm a coding tutor. I have been teaching for about 10 years now. Before that, I used to work in a university where I did take computer science programs, but that was 10 years ago. Since then, I do this as a corporate trainer, as a self-employed freelance kind of guy. So I take up workshops from students. It just so happens that for the last 10 years, most, I think Ricardo will just wait for a few minutes, so we'll just wait for the pinging to stop. Yeah, let's just chill out for a few minutes. I think that's good. I don't mind.
Yeah. I just have to say, everybody, don't unmute your microphones. We just have one microphone working at the same time, and that would be
sure.
Oh, wait on, Ricardo, wait a second. I just realized I'm a co-host. I can take charge of the meeting. Hold on, let me do that.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to multitask so much.
So I do this every week. This is what I do for a living. So it's all. I just realized I'm a co-host. I can control everything. There we go. All right, just switching everyone off. There we go.
There.
All right, everybody's muted. Nobody can unmute themselves, so that's stopped. They can only chat with me and Ricardo, so that's good.
Okay.
All right, there we go. And enable waiting room, but that's fine. Yeah. All right, Ricardo, we are in control for now. Guys, we'll turn on chat.
Thank you very much.
If anybody has a comment, you can write it into chat, and then we can talk about it. We can ask the question during the presentation. Okay.
You guys can still message us, so that's totally chill. So that's fine. So there we go. So I'll keep looking here. It doesn't mean I'm ignoring you folks. It's just that I have other monitors helping my presentation. So right then, so my name is Jay. Once again, I'm a coding tutor. This is what I do in and out for the last 10 years and so on. It just so happens most of my students are from Western countries, so I am sort of familiar with the Western educational system, America, US, Europe. I have students who have been taking my help for such a long time. So there you go. So that might help folks interact with me, make them more comfortable, so to speak. So first up, I'm going to jump straight into it. As the moderators told you already, you have a question, just put that in the chat. I'll be reading them as I'm talking to you, and you will have an opportunity to speak with me and the moderators, and we'll answer questions, not a problem. So let's jump in here. So I am to give you an introduction about these three things. And if you are considering some sort of a career or interested in computer science, especially in the programming side of things, application development and stuff like that, these three things will always be there. With AI being the latest kind of a thing, which is becoming part of the the general noise that you keep hearing in technology. Every 6 months you keep hearing something new. Sometimes it's the metaverse, other times it's the NFT, sometimes it's something else. But AI is something which I believe has been around for many years. But now, you'll hear about ChatGPT a lot. It's becoming easier for everyday folks to kind of use it, which I think is why it is included in today's discussion. But of course, let's not forget the foundations. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and let me get a whiteboard up here. Okay, there we go. Oh, I need to get a whiteboard. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, I did get that. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let's start with this then. So anytime you use an application, normally I like to use, let's say Netflix as an example. So let's take the example of Netflix here. Now, most of you use it and it is available all over the world. So I'm gonna just check that. How are people still able to chat? Hold on. I muted everybody. Mute all, there you go.
Jay, we have a lot of people joining us. We have a lot of people joining us from all over the world. So I think they keep coming, we keep having new. So even though you mute everyone, the new ones are unmuted.
I just realized that. It's okay. I'll keep an eye on that. I'll keep folks every few minutes. It's fine. I can do that. It's not a problem. Okay. So coming back, folks. So what I'm trying to say is, let's look at an example of Netflix, because Netflix is available worldwide and it is a very popular app. So what happens with Netflix is we have something called as at the core of everything, you will have something called as a web API. So that is the first thing I want to explain today, because that is where the whole modern technology infrastructure is built around. So essentially, in the olden days, when I say olden days, I'm talking before the mobile revolution, everything would have been a database. So all the data would be in the database, your images, your text, your audio, everything would be in a database. and you would have some kind of a application or a website. I mean, these days, they're both almost the same, like web applications and applications, because you do a lot of stuff directly on the internet these days. For instance, you have, like, I'm using PowerPoint to make a presentation. Suppose I did not have my computer in front of me, I could literally log in from anybody's computer or even my iPad and use the online version of PowerPoint to make a presentation. So that's the power we are seeing today. But in the olden days, we had a distinction between software being a desktop app, and then of course you have the website, which would also talk to the database directly. Now that is the old architecture. But today what we have is, we have databases, of course, databases are not going anywhere, but in the middle of it, we have a server, specifically an API server. So you will hear this a lot when you get into technology. You'll talk about APIs all the time. For instance, when you, just this week, I think a day ago, ChatGPT is beginning to take up subscriptions for professional use of AI services, where they'll give you access to an API. So everything is an API. You talk about Netflix, they would have a Netflix API. You talk about a weather website, there would be a weather API. You talk about Facebook, there'll be a Facebook API. So everything runs on API these days. So essentially what APIs do is they sit in the center of every service you experience today on the internet, which means computers, desktops, TVs, consoles, Xboxes, PlayStations, mobile phones, tablets, whatever you can think of, even your smart systems in homes. Everything will eventually, all these devices, they are talking to the corresponding API server. So I have Netflix on my Xbox, I have Netflix on my computer, on my iPad, my iPhone, my Android device. All of them are able to access that Netflix data, like movie titles, the actual movie, your subscription information, the video data, everything is being transmitted through APIs. So that is the first thing I want you to understand about modern technology. At the center of it all is this concept. I wouldn't call it a technology because that comes later, the concept of an API. And when we speak about anybody trying to become a developer, we make a distinction, and that is the next thing I want to talk about. So we make a distinction called as a back-end developer, and then there is such a thing called as front-end developer. But of course, there is another thing called as full stack development, which essentially combines, hold on, where did my marker go? Oh, there it is. So the full stack combines the back end and front end into a single type of developer, which means this person, the full stack developer, would be capable of building, maintaining, managing both front end and back end. So before I get into full stack and stuff like that, I'm just going to quickly check the chat if this makes sense to everyone. I'm seeing hello messages, so I don't see any questions so far. So I think we are okay. All right then. So let's keep going. So at the center is the API, and the API is essentially what is called as the back end. So you could say that an API is nothing but the back end. Now, this is where we can start talking about technologies that you can use to build these APIs. Like if you are considering some kind of a program at a university and you're thinking, okay, backend sounds exciting, then the most popular technologies for .NET, backend is .NET and Node.js. Now, this is why I don't consider API itself as a technology, because API is like a concept. Like if I say I'm going to purchase a computer is not actually a product. It's a simple name given to the computing device. But then you might consider like, hey, I'm going to buy a Windows PC. And even that is just a name. You might say, I'm going to buy a Lenovo PC. For example, I'm sharing my screen from a HP gaming computer because if you want to do AI, if you're going to do machine learning and things like that, you need a powerful computer. So just something to think about. So whenever you see people buying a gaming computer, it doesn't mean they're actually gaming. Although I believe gaming is useful for programming, ideally we are buying powerful computers because we should have them in order to do programming. A laptop would not cut it for things like machine learning and AI or creative coding and stuff like that. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Coming back, so .NET is one of the main ways you would build API systems. Node.js is another way you would build API systems. Of course, there are other players in the market. You have PHP. You might hear about people building APIs with PHP. You have Python being used for building backend. See, this is something you'll notice for the last 5 years. A lot of technologies are kind of gravitating towards being able to do everything and everything. So we don't have specializations anymore in the world of technology. It's more like everybody can do everything. There was a time when JavaScript was supposed to be like a front end only kind of thing. But today it's a huge deal because I'm going to talk about it in a minute. So backend, yes, the two big players are .NET and Node.js. Now you obviously know, if you don't know, you know now that .NET is a private enterprise technology from Microsoft, whereas Node.js is, nobody owns it. It's a community kind of deal. So that may be something to think about. Like if you are more into open source and things like that, Node.js may be your partner, but .NET is going to be proprietary technology from Microsoft. So something to think about. Now that is the backend, and what these things do is these guys, these .NET and Node.js platforms, they provide you with all the libraries, the tools, and things like that. I'm going to show you some of the tools we use to build an API. So I will be doing that in a few minutes. So that's about backend. And frontend is the stuff that you see. So if you have, let's say, the Netflix guys, they have the Netflix API, they are probably using something like Node.js, because many of these modern companies, they actually don't use .NET that much, because it's proprietary technology. So there may be some licensing involved when you build their API. So I like to believe that a lot of these large corporations, they would go ahead and use Node.js because it is open source and all the libraries are open source. So it's easy for them to innovate, which is a good thing, because Netflix and Facebook and Google and all these companies, when they innovate something, because they started with open source, they have an obligation to release whatever they innovate as open source. So it's like a circle of open source and innovation, which is why you'll notice for the last 5 years, Microsoft is also getting into the open source game. People who know from the 90s, you remember Microsoft has a big battle with the US government about proprietary technology, trying to hold on to things as a case of monopoly. Now the same Microsoft, 15 years later, is now becoming more open, even going to the extent of open sourcing a lot of stuff, which would be unimaginable in the 90s. So that is the effect. We talk about this Node.js and open source. So backend, so that's the story with backend. Now let's talk about frontend. So frontend is what you see. So when you watch a movie on Netflix on your smart TV, you watch your movie on your Xbox, of course, your mobile phones, and then your computers and all that. Whenever you see something or you log into the Netflix website, like right now, you're able to see me, you're able to see Ricardo, you're able to see Dr. Edward and all these guys. You are using an app, and that's front end. So as we are doing this online video conferencing classroom session, what is happening is you have your Zoom app that all of you are interacting with me. So that is the front end. Like, for example, right now I can click on Mr. Ricardo's face here, and I can see him in big on my iPad because I just touched him, and that's interaction. That's UI for you. Now I can go back to my own face because I think I'm very handsome and all. So I'm going to look at myself. So that again is a front end. So what is happening here? You have your Zoom app, and all of you are using it. Some of you may be joining from mobile, some from your computer, maybe even from your smart TV, I don't know, right? And then all these Zoom apps, all of these Zoom apps from all over the world, they're all talking to the Zoom API server probably in US, probably in India, these big corporations, they have what is called as mirroring servers all over the world. So the data gets shared and transferred because they need to do this fast. They can't be like Ricardo sees me first and then Mr. Steve sees me 5 seconds later. That would be nice. So these big corporations, they have these distributed servers, API servers all over the world in these large, big servers. And all this data gets sent over to their API servers. And here, what happens is all that video compression, chat messages, people being logged in, security setting that I'm enforcing, all these things, they get compressed or processed, and they are then in turn sent back to all the apps. So there you go, my friends. So when we talk about any modern software, you have apps, that is the front end, and then you have the APIs, which act as the central server, taking stuff from one app, especially in the case of Zoom, because I'm sending data and all of you are receiving data. At the same time, I'm also receiving data because I can see other players in the classroom. So both of them are happening simultaneously, and we are all using different devices. It's not like Zoom is only there on Android. It's not like it's only there on the computer. So that is the magic of API plus front end. Now, in backend, I said, okay, you have .NET, you have Node.js. Now, what about front end? Now, front end, because there are so many devices, we have a lot more options, and there has to be. So the main technologies we use in front end, for instance, we go with Android. Mobile phones, we are talking about things like Java and Kotlin. And we are talking about iPhone and iPads. We are talking about Swift, which is the programming language from Apple. And of course, as always, Microsoft is always there with its C#, which is also used in the .NET backend. However, this was the case a few years ago. Things have already changed in this regard. These days, what is happening is, because there are so many devices, companies, corporations, they're trying to move front-end development to what is called as hybrid development, wherein you use a single language to build software for many devices. Okay, so what does this mean? So again, let's take the Zoom app. Let's use Zoom as an example. It's very likely that the Zoom app, which is available on Android, iPhone, desktop, all these things, were all built using a single language, JavaScript. So this is like a consolidation that is happening in front end, which is another reason today when you sign up for programs or you join workshops, and including this very workshop, if you have your eye on the front end as a career option or something, I'm going to insist that you please spend more time with stuff like JavaScript plus HTML plus CSS. And I will be showing this also. I got a couple of tools ready on my computer. This is a development computer, of course. I'm always working on one or the other project. So I'll be showing you those tools as well. So let me dig a little bit deeper into the front end, because back end is fairly, simplified, because the technology of back end hasn't changed that much, because 10 years before, they were API servers, and 10 years now, there are API servers, and I don't think API technology is going anywhere. So we don't expect any changes in that happening. So if you want to be a backend developer, pick up .NET or pick up Node.js, and you're good to go. But front end is where things get a little complex and kind of challenging. So let's dig a little to the front end stuff. So I mentioned JavaScript, and the good thing about this is, the Node.js, which is used in the API, also uses JavaScript. So this is another reason you will notice that when folks pick up their programming careers, there's a lot of movement toward JavaScript, because one, the whole specialization industry is kind of dying out. A single developer is expected to work on both front end and back end. For instance, I personally am a back end developer, but for the last 5 years, even though it is not my personal choice, I am forced to be taking on a lot of front-end projects. It was not even my skill. It was not even my primary expertise or something, but the industry is changing. So folks are expecting you to do both front-end and back-end. And the reason for that is, once again, JavaScript. So in the 90s, JavaScript plus HTML plus CSS. So whenever I say JavaScript, just assume that I'm also mentioning HTML and CSS. JavaScript was primarily for building websites. But then these big corporations, mainly Facebook and Google, they kind of started adding more and more features to JavaScript. You may have heard something called ES 6 or 7 or 10 and things like that. You'll hear this occasionally. So what has happened is they have taken this JavaScript and they have kind of, it's like, like when you see a movie or something, in the very first movie, like the Iron Man movie, the very first Iron Man movie, his main enemy is some guy, some old guy. I mean, no offense to old people, I'm just saying, some old guy in an Iron Man suit, which is not even that good. That's his biggest villain. And then 10 years later, Iron Man is fighting across the solar systems, battling planet-destroying aliens and all that, like a serious amount of escalation. So something similar has happened to JavaScript. So they've taken something which is very, very simple, and today it's become this mammoth monster because it is able to do so many things. So that explains the whole explosion of JavaScript related discussion. ChatGPT, again, whatever you do with ChatGPT, you would be doing with JavaScript. When you build APIs, you do it with JavaScript. You build front end, websites, mobile apps, whatever you're talking about, all of that happens with JavaScript. Now, before I show you some of my tools, I want to just talk about one last thing. Now, those of you who are thinking of jumping into this front-end development, it can be lucrative. I wouldn't say it is as lucrative as backend. Mainly, I say this from experience because when you work on web APIs, which is backend, you are thinking a lot because you are talking to the database and you have to focus on all sorts of things like security, concurrency, distributing the load, and cost optimization and using the cloud and whatnot. So there are a lot of complications. So if someone is new, I strongly recommend you start with front end. That is my humble request to new developers. If you already are in the development game for a few years, then yes, explore backend development. But I can tell you backend is slightly on the complicated side. So now that's something I want to say. Now coming back to front end. Once again, there was a time when you talk about front end, all you had to do was know a little bit of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and that's it. You are a developer. But times have changed. So now when we talk about front end development, we are talking about front end frameworks. And in frameworks, we are talking about React, and we are talking about Angular, and we have a third player called Vue.js. So that's V-U-E. It's pronounced like as if you're viewing like a window, but it is like Vue.js. So it's like a view. So these are the three main players in front-end development. So if you're exploring a career in programming, first step, I would recommend you start with front-end development, which means you will be spending many, many hours, many, many months on these three foundational things, which is JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. We call it vanilla.js. It's like vanilla ice cream. It doesn't have any toppings or nothing fancy about it, but it's still ice cream though. So we have the vanilla.js, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, but that's not enough anymore. And then you'll start learning depending on your university or depending on your program, or maybe depending on what you feel is nicer to you, because these frameworks, each of them, they have a different approach to building things. So they all have, just like a car, some of you might like Toyota, other people might like, I'm not able to think of Ford. Yeah, Ford. Yeah, American company. Yeah, Ford. So there you go. So some of you might like Ford. Some of you might like, Hyundai. Yeah, there you go. So there you go. So just like how people get attached to different kinds of car manufacturers, developers get attached to different frameworks. But then again, a lot of times you don't really have a choice. I mean, I work on all three and I'm not even a front-end developer, so you can't really help it. You know, companies choose these libraries based on their own personal preferences. So these are the main frameworks. And the good thing is, these guys, React.js, Angular, and Vue.js, they were primarily designed to build websites when they were invented 6 or 7 years ago. Because at that time, people were still building mobile apps using the mobile specific development tools. But then, you know, as it happens with technology, again, corporations were like, we can't have 6 different teams, you know, like one team for Android, one team for smart televisions, one team for Xbox apps, one team for computers. No, we can't have that. It's not practical. So these technologies, React.js, Angular, and these things, they grew, they evolved, and now you can build, let's say you become a React expert, you can build apps for everything simply with your knowledge of React.
Hello,
so
hello,
that is
Jay.
the
Jay,
yes.
Are you able to share a portion of your screen to show what the script looks like?
I did not get that. Sorry. Can you say that? Do you want me to stop this? Oh, show the screen. Oh, right. Hold on.
Yeah. Are you able to share some script on the screen?
Oh, sure. I was going to do that. I was going to show maybe a demo project or something. Okay. Once I finish with the drawing. So because Zoom won't let me use the whiteboard and my screen at the same time. Sorry about that. So, but I think I can do something like this. Hold on. So let me try this. So I'm going to stop the whiteboard sharing and let me fire up a project. Why don't I fire up a simple React project? No? So let me just do that. Hold on. I think I have many projects here. Hold on. Let's go to.
And I just wanted to share with the students, you know, about AIU. I mean, just so you know, AIU runs on .NET Core, the platform, the student section that you use. Our emails, the emails that you receive, you know, you receive a lot of emails at different times for different topics. We use JSON code, which I think is from Mongo database or something like that. So we work with a lot of back end and front end. The front end are the designers and the back end are the programmers. That's how we kind of describe them. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys so you have an idea of what this front end, and the front end would be the website of AIU. The back end is the student section, not the student section, but what makes the student section run. So what you see is the front end, and what you don't see, everything that happens behind, is the back end. Jay, I don't know if you're ready.
I am. I have a simple project to show you guys. So I'm just picking it up on the screen here, and this needs a key to work. I'm just getting the key right now. One moment. Yeah. Let me see. So I have this project.
I also allowed you, our students. So if anybody has a question, you can post it. It appears for everyone. So far, we've had good interactions with everyone, and I just wanted you to also feel free to post a question. Everybody will see your question now, or raise your hand, and we can do a quick pause if there's any questions.
Okay, I have a simple front-end project for the class. There we go. Let me just make sure it's working. I don't want to look stupid. There it's working. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So I have for you on the screen. I just searched for Batman movie. I hope that's okay. So I have a very simple project. Dr. Edward, is this something you're expecting? Is some of tools? Is this okay?
Yes, looks perfect so far.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So this one contains almost everything I discussed with you. So I can use this as a real example and connect with what I explained. So there we go, guys. So let's go into this. So earlier, what I was saying was we have frameworks these days. So if you're gonna choose to be a developer, remember, start with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. But please don't expect that to help you with even an internship. You know, expectations these days are pretty high, even from a small startup or anybody actually. So you have to jump ship, not jump ship. You have to upgrade yourself to use a framework. But Here in front of you, I have a simple project, which is actually what is the vanilla JS I spoke about. So this doesn't use any framework as such, but it will still show you that if you really want to get started, you can actually build some pretty cool stuff using vanilla JS itself. So there's nothing like vanilla JS is like, I mean, ice cream shops still sell it for a reason. There are still people who want vanilla ice cream. So same way in programming, a vanilla JS knowledge alone is more than sufficient to build advanced projects, but it will cost you a lot of time. So that is the reason why we use framework. So the problem with vanilla JS is anything you want to do, you will have to build it yourself. To use an example, it's kind of like, let's say you want to have a car when you go to college, but instead of buying a car, you are actually manufacturing your own car. So that's what vanilla JS feels like. That is why. So if you become a vanilla JS expert, you might actually become very, very, what do you say, important for a company because you build your own car. But by the time you finish building it, if you start at 20, you'll be like 25 and a lot of time is wasted. So unless you're already super rich or something, it may not help you. So frameworks are important. So there you go, guys. So I have a simple vanilla project for you. And hopefully I'll be able to show you some complex projects in another session or something. But let's dig into this right now and start connecting the dots, right? Now, first step, let's go ahead and search for a movie, right? I have Batman up here, so I'm gonna search for Avengers, why not? And there you go, I have the Avengers. Oh, that movie I was talking about, the one where Iron Man is fighting aliens and whatnot. So this software, what is it doing right now? So I have the front end here with you, and you can see on the left side, I have my code, and this is the tool that we use for coding. This is a tool called, let me open the above. There you go. So this is one of the most popular tools in the world. And it is from Microsoft, and it is called Visual Studio Code. So by far the most popular tool for coding anything really. So you can do literally everything in VS Code, and you're seeing it in action right now on the screen. And now the important thing about VS Code is any technology you want, .NET, Python, what I'm doing right now, vanilla JS, React JS, Angular JS, anything you want to build, VS Code is your best friend. And that is what you're seeing right now on the left side. And what you're seeing is, as I mentioned, this is vanilla JS, so it has HTML. You can see all kind of stuff here. I could zoom it in a little bit. So, most of this may not make sense to you right now, but it's there. So there you go. So this is HTML for you. And of course, we have CSS, which is styling. This is where we style things. Ultimately, that's where you put colors and stuff like that. And of course, the main brain of the project is JavaScript. So this is JavaScript. You can see here there are a lot of stuff going on, and all the code is being written like functions, and there's something being fetched. There are URLs, there are API keys, console logs, comments. There are a lot of functions here. So even though it's right now on the right side, you can see the website. What it does is you search for a movie. So if I say James Bond, it will search for something about James Bond. So what is happening? So let's try to understand and link it with the code, okay? So once again, let me get my marker. And what I'll do is, I don't want to use the whiteboard anymore. So I'm gonna make this a little bigger and open a new tab. There you go, that's like a whiteboard. So what's happening here? And I'm going to open something called as the developer tool. So there you go, you have a lot of stuff happening on the right side. We call this debugging. So when you're building a project, the right side tells you what is right, what is wrong, what is working, what is not working. So much information stored here. So what is happening here is there's a Joseph who wants to come in. Oh, okay. So now let's get the marker. Now I mentioned to you about API servers. So this is the API server. In my project, I am using what is called as, one second, guys, I just need to move this stuff here. Okay. So what I'm doing is, whatever movie I search, so if I search for something like Jurassic Park, the moment I press enter from my website, information. So I have my website running on my computer here in India, and the word Jurassic Park is being sent to the movie API server. So when I press Jurassic and I press enter, that word is sent to the API server. I don't know where this movie API server is, probably in America. It's an American company. It's not a big company, so probably they have servers in America, but still you see the data comes within seconds, like less than a second. Now, when I send this information, like I'm looking for Jurassic Park, somebody at the movie website company, they built the API, and I'm 100% sure they are using Node.js. So they built the API. What the API does is they will have a massive database which will contain all the movies which have been released all over the world for the last, many, many decades. It's a movie website, so all the data is stored there. So this API would have code written in JavaScript, which will talk to the database, run some queries, and then get the movie information and send that information back to me in a format called as JSON. So this is another technology concept which you'll see a lot in every development profile. You need to understand how to use JSON, how to process it, how to receive it, how to send it. So what I do on my website is, let me go back to my website. So once I get my information, once it comes back, you can see here, if I open this, let me zoom it in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So I search for Jurassic Park, and I'm sure you can see here, this is where that is being processed. And this is what we call JSON. Look at that. Look at all this stuff. All this information is coming in as JSON. Just to make it a little bit more technical, I'll show you the raw data, how it looks, okay? So I go here to network. I have a lot of requests here. And if I go to the most recent request, I go, there you go. And if I go to response, there you go. That's our deal. That's the JSON data. Let me open that up for you. See, there it is. That's all JSON. So whatever information I ask for, all of that is being sent to me as a JSON object. And what I am doing is, it's like a gift wrap. So you can think of JSON as a packaging for the data you're looking for. So when that data comes to my website on this computer, I start unpacking it. Now the website is probably sending me way too much information. I don't want all that right now. What I want is a nice poster. I put that. I want to show a tagline. I put that. And then I want to show the plot summary. I'm showing that right now. And then I just want to make a simple gallery, like you can apply some cool effects like a slider or something. And I want to show all the images and stuff. You can see here on the right side, all these images, they're getting downloaded one by one. So if I go a little bit down, look at that, there it is. All the images. You can see this image is shown on the left side. So the image comes here, but I take it in my code and I show it on my website. So when I close all these developer things, somebody who's using my website will think, wow, look at that movie website, looks pretty cool. So there you go. That's the magic of front end. So this is what we do really in programming, all these things working together, JavaScript, HTML, and this is just vanilla JS, If we go into React.js, things get far more complex. The tooling is far more complex. And there is a concept called state management, which I don't think I can get into today, but state management, I'm going to just write it down on the screen. The session is getting recorded, so hopefully people will look it up after the session or something. So the big challenge that is solved by front-end frameworks is state management.
Jay, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Where is the code stored? On a server, in a computer, where?
Okay, I'll show that with an example because I have one more website which I can show you for that specific question. So let me do that. So now, but before I do that, I'm going to wrap up the state management just to wrap up what I started. So folks, remember, when you're using anything in the world, it doesn't have to be software. Like right now, I am talking to you. Before the session, I have my big computer, I have my second monitor, I got my water bottle, I have my iPad, the iPad stand, power backup. I get everything ready, right? That is my state. And then I keep an eye out for changes in this state. So like, for instance, Dr. Edward just asked me a question. Now my senses are keeping an eye out for changes in this state, all right? So every software in the world, whether it's a mobile app, web app, anything, it is constantly listening to changes in state. Like this website, if I go here and when I press enter, like I go back and I will say something like Pirates, Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's listening to see what I'm doing. And when I press enter, it's listening to that, this one, it's listening to that event, and it needs to change the state depending on that event. Now, the problem is the vanilla JavaScript, remember I told you, you build your own car. So you literally have to build your own state management. And that takes up hours and hours and days and days. And that is why we use frameworks. So we'll dig into state management some other day. So let me go to the next part, what Dr. Edward asked me about. Where does it live, right? So let's get into that, sir. So let me go ahead and clear up the drawings here. Now I have a project just for that occasion. So I'll show you. So where does it go? How does it work? Like when you build something, where does it live? So that is so let me take an example. Now, folks, this is a good time for me to tell you about GitHub, even if it's not part of the discussion, but I will tell it because it's essential. So once again, I'm going to put this here. I'll put it on the right side, and I'll put GitHub on the left side, and I'll explain on the right side. So what is happening is, now this is the developer's computer, okay? And this is your computer. So wherever you're sitting, I'm sitting here, I write my code, blah, 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 and the code is ready. And I can see the output on my computer. But how can I make sure that Dr. Edward can see the output? How can I make sure Ricardo can see it? Let's say if we have another session about building that website, what if everybody wants to see my website from their computer or mobile phone, tablet, Xbox, whatever? This is how the development cycle works. It's pretty complex, but I think you'll understand it. So step number one, you write your code on your computer. You use VS Code, all kind of tools. There are dozens of tools, guys. VS Code is the popular, but obviously there are other tools as well. For example, before I go away, I don't even have the tool on this computer. So VS Code is the king right now. So there you go, it's done, it's won the battle. So step number one, you write your code on VS Code. Step number two, this is where the journey begins. I write the code and I literally push. It's like, I've heard stories in America, the moment a person is a teenager, is finished his teenager, they're kicked out of the house. It doesn't happen in India, but I've heard it happens in America. Once a person is old enough, they have to go and live on their own, which would never happen in India, of course. But I'm just saying. So, how you push people out, you push the code out of your computer, and then you push it to GitHub. So GitHub is where your code lives, at least the modern code. Okay, you don't have to push it to GitHub. For a layman person, like if you don't know about programming, imagine GitHub is like your Google Drive or Dropbox. This is where you put your stuff online for safekeeping. But yes, safekeeping is one reason we put our code to GitHub. You can see on the left side, this is my GitHub account. So let me just go to the profile section. That's a much more better way of looking at it. So this is my GitHub. There you go. That's me. That's how I look. So this is my GitHub account, right? And now I'm going through a long hair phase, guys. Sorry about that. Anyway, after the pandemic, during the pandemic, because there were no barbers, I had to get a short haircut. So I thought, okay, pandemic is over. I'm going to grow my hair out, go back to my old look. So that's what it is. So GitHub. So there you go. So you take your code from your computer and you put it on GitHub. And why is that so important? Step number one, please remember, when you're working on a project, you never work alone. You always have at least one more person working with you. Even if it's not a coding person, you may have a friend or a professor or a mentor or a business client or somebody helping with you. So how do you share code? Again, GitHub. So GitHub allows hundreds and thousands of people to work together on a single project. So that's the main thing about GitHub. Plus, once a code is ready, and I'm going to show it to you live right now, okay? So if I go here, I have a website. There you go. We have a website called P5.js. And this is actually running live on the internet. So I'm going to put this link in the chat. I think everyone will get it. Ricardo can try it out or share it again or something. So guys, this is, it's like an interactive website that I have built. I do this as part of my teaching. It does things like this. You may have seen this on the internet, people doing colors and drawings and stuff like that. So this is called as creative coding. I teach this to some students. So this is again JavaScript, if it makes you feel better about it. So JavaScript is really powerful. It can do all kinds of things. Now this is actually running on the internet. So you guys can open that link on your computer and check the output right now, because it is running on the cloud. And this is where I answer Dr. Edward's question. So what happens is, let me make this drawing a little bit bigger. So what I do, the code once again begins on your computer. The journey begins here. Then the second journey, it goes to GitHub. That is the second step where it gets stored. And many people will be building at the same time. And then from GitHub, it goes to what is called as GitHub Actions. And that is the key. So GitHub Actions is like an agent. All right. So GitHub Actions is what is called as a deployment. You can call it a deployment guide, deployment engine, deployment, anything you want. It takes care of deployment. So what GitHub Actions does is it picks up my code. It's like a courier guy. It's like when you're sending a package or something. The GitHub Actions person will take the code from my GitHub online repository or the online folder, and he will push the code. Now, there are two types of pushes. There is the push where I push the code from my computer to the GitHub. And the second push is from GitHub Actions to the cloud. You keep hearing about the cloud all the time. So that link I just shared on the chat, which all of you can open, that is part of Microsoft Azure cloud. So what I have done is, and since I have Azure already, so I can show that also. Hold on, I'll show you my Azure account where the website is running. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to show that too. Very interesting as well, just to see how these things work, So let me just log into my Azure account. Hold on. So there you go. It's just loading up. So I use Microsoft Azure mainly because a few years ago, I did something really cool and I got an award from Microsoft. So I like Microsoft. So there you go. So this is the cloud thing I'm talking about. And if I go here and I go to my resources, so this is the cloud dashboard. Looks a little confusing. It's okay. And you see here on the top right corner, do you see this Mango Hill? It's the same thing I shared in the chat. So this is the cloud. You can see here, do you see this dot here? Just now, I think many people are trying to access that website, and the computer is showing me so many people trying to use that website. So this is where it's running, Dr. Edward. So the website, the code is here. Let me show you the code as well. So I go back to my GitHub, and the code is sitting very safe on this. So this is the code. So whenever I put a code, it gets uploaded from my machine to GitHub. And from GitHub, it is picked up like a courier agent, and it is dumped into this cloud website you see on the right side. And you can see here just a few seconds ago, a lot of people are trying to access. So it's already running and sending data all over the place. So this is essentially what we do in software as well. So every corporation in the world, what they do is, let me get a white screen here, not this one, let me use this. So every corporation in the world, ultimately what they do is They have their developers, they have all their developers working all over the world. This is why, remote work is possible because of things like GitHub. So all these developers are pushing code to GitHub. Usually there'll be some manager or a project manager monitoring things, nothing bad or ugly code gets deployed, right? So they have those things. And then from here, when it's ready, the approval process and all is done, it goes to GitHub Actions. And then from here, it is pushed to the web app, to your mobile apps, to your TV, to your Xbox, and everywhere. The whole thing is automated. And there are checks in place, of course, so that nothing bad happens. But every now and then you'll hear on the TV, right? Like something happened, an employee was having some fun or something. It's because of that. That employee figured out a way to bypass these checks and push some code they were not supposed to push. So this is why whenever you see like a website has crashed or some malicious thing happened and companies are like, oh, we are so sorry that happened. It's because of this, you'll wonder like, how can they let this happen? It's because everything is automated. So someone somewhere forgot the keys and, leaves behind a computer without lock, and some young employee or an intern is like, you know what, I'm going to mess with my boss today. And that is how those things happen. So there you go, Dr. Edward. This is how it works. So it kind of, you take the code, goes to GitHub Actions, from there to the cloud. But please understand, this is only one example. There are dozens of technologies like GitHub Action. There are dozens of technologies like GitHub. There are dozens of cloud providers, but the concept is the same.
So where's the cloud? Is the GitHub Actions in the cloud?
It would be running in the cloud as well. So literally everything will be running in its own cloud. But for our purposes, my cloud would be here, this guy. So just like how my website is running on my own personal cloud, the GitHub Corporation would have their own cloud provider where they will also be pushing code on a daily basis. So it's like, how do you say it? It's like a person on top of a person, on top of a person, it's like a box inside a box inside a box. So everything is the cloud literally these days, because just to give you an example, sir, what happens is in the olden days, you had to literally put a computer in your house to run a website. So that is why people keep saying the cloud and the cloud, because in the olden days, every company would have a room in their office. When I was younger, I used to work in companies. There would be a room with all kind of cameras and security guard and cold refrigerator. I don't know if you guys have it there in America. Maybe I think it all phased out in the 90s or something. But in India, we still had those things till 2010 or 12 or something. But after that, go on, please.
So when the script hits the GitHub Actions, it becomes like a living cell in the nervous system of the internet?
Yes. And if you want to, I can do a live push right now, and you can see the changes on the screen. If you want, I can do that.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, let's do it then. You can see the code being built, like it's literally cooked, like how in the street food, they make food in front of you, like you can see it happening. And you're like, hey man, why don't you put an extra salt or something? So you can see how the sausage is made. I can do that, let me do that. Why not? Hold on. So what first step is, I need to get the code. So I already have the code on my computer. So hold on, I'll go to my project. So I can show you what I just said. So first step is the project. So there you go. You can see here, the project is called P5JS for students. So there you go. And you can see here also P5JS. And if I go back to my GitHub, 3 players, cloud, my code on my computer, 4 players, code on my computer, GitHub Actions, and Azure, 4 players in the game. So first step, computer. So this is my project. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go and open this in my VS Code. So there you go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm trying to impress Ricardo and Dr. Edwards. So I'm going to put their name on my website. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to do some high level, impressing live on TV. So I'm going to go here, and what I'm going to do is, where's my website? So I'm going to take my website. There it is. So I'm going to put it here. So what I'll do is, I have this. So I have the title P5 for JS for students. There it is. And what I'm going to do is, right here where it says P5.js for students, I'm going to add a small amount of, let me make sure everything is ready because I don't want to make a mistake. Okay, there you go. So I'll do one thing where it says P5.js for students. I'm going to take this. I'm going to type a simple line. I'm going to try to impress Dr. Edward by putting his name on my website. For a few minutes, I'll remove it later. So I'm going to put it as Dr. Edward. There you go. Lambert. All right, there we go. Now let me also, of course, put Ricardo's name. Let me get his spelling. Ricardo Gonzalez. I think I pronounced the name correctly. All right. I'm going to put Ricardo Gonzalez. There we go. So that's two. Let's say this is the project I'm building. You know, my project is to impress these two guys. So that's the code I'm working on. So I put the code, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some commands now. So I'm going to go ahead and check if it's working. So there's a button here. Now, when I click on this, the website is going to run on my computer. So look at that. So this is on my computer. So I can see, okay, yes, Dr. Edward's name is on my website, and Ricardo Gonzalez is also on the website. So I know it's working, but it's only on my computer, right? So it's not on the cloud, because if I go to the cloud, I reload this, nothing has changed. So it's still on step one, coding on your computer. Now let's go to the second step, put it on GitHub. So what I'll do is I'll go to my terminal and I'm going to type some commands. I won't get into the commands today because it can get very complex. So I'm just going to focus on making sure the command works. So I'm typing some commands to make sure the code gets pushed. But the moment I push it, Dr. Edward, it's going to start running immediately. So I'm going to open the running part on the right side so you can see it, okay? So, because I don't want you to miss it when it happens, because it happens so fast. You know, these days, these things are so fast. They don't even give you time to catch up. So let me put the thing on the right side, not this one. It's not going to work on this. It's not going to work on this also. Hold on. I need to use some other thing for this. Yeah, there we go. So now what I'll do is, so keep an eye on GitHub. It happens in a very subtle fashion. So hold on. So where is my P5.js? Okay. So I'm going to try to zoom in so you can see for yourself. So you'll notice right now it says number 12. So keep an eye on that. It says number 12 and it says last week. That was the last time I did some changes. And there's a small check mark. So keep an eye on the check mark. Keep an eye on last week. Keep an eye on 12. And that's going to change in a few seconds. So it's going to change to 13. So I'm going to go back here and I will say, I'm just going to put some message showing the class how deployment works. Okay, now what happens is, okay, it's ready. Now this is the part where I push the code, git push. There you go, it's pushed, it's showing. Now look, keep an eye there. Now when I refresh it, it says 13. Do you see that, Dr. Edward? Okay, and look at that yellow screen. That's the deployment. Okay, I'm going to open this now. Do you see that? And we can literally see, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to actions. There it is. It's working already. It's calculating. It's picking up the files and talking to the cloud and all that. You see that? So it's literally packing the files as we are speaking, completely automated. So it's taking the file like a courier agent. It's like, hey, wait a second. This J person has pushed. Look at that. Look at there it is. It's taking the files. It's like, hey, man, I have a new file for you. Hold on. So it's taking the files now. It's doing some stuff. Okay, getting the files ready. And it's still not done yet. It's still taking the files from GitHub. So if I'm going to draw something, so it's like GitHub Actions. It's doing it. Oh, there you go. It's downloaded the files. Okay, it's picked up the files. Now it's moved on to cloud. There it is. It's now talking to Azure. It's like, hey, I have some files for you. Can you please put this on the website so everybody can see? So that's happening. Almost done. It says in progress. It only takes a few seconds. It's not a big file. Still going on. There it is. Still not done. 15 seconds. Still going on. Okay. So now it says, hey, it's done. And if you want, you can see the output. So if I go ahead and open that link, so the link is here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this link, and I'm going to share this link. There you go. Dr. Edward is now on the internet. But there is a small catch though. So I'm going to send this link to you guys on the chat. So you can also open it on your computer and check it out. But hold on though, because it is GitHub, they want to protect me from an accidental mistake. So what GitHub is trying to tell me is, hey man, I have pushed your code to an interim website. So it's not the final website. It's an in-between website, like a practice area, like a staging area. So now I know this looks good. So I'm going to finalize it. So I'm going to go back to GitHub, and I will have let me just go ahead and commit this. And I just need to confirm if it is actually live. So if I go here and if I check the main, okay, it is actually gone to the main website. So if you guys check that link I sent you, hold on, let me try opening that link. And it is live, Mr. Dr. Edward. So you can open it on your computer. Yes. And your name would be there. And so is Gonzalo. Hey, I made a spelling mistake. Oh, Ricardo, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize. And I hope Ricardo will take it personally. Oh, he says it's okay. All right. But again, if I want to, I can edit it within seconds and it can update it. So there you go. So there you go, Dr. Edward. That is how we do it, sir. So in any project worldwide, this is how it works for all companies. The moment the manager says something is good to go, the computers take care of everything. And just to point this out, there was a time in the olden days, we used to have like a lot of guys doing this. So those jobs are eliminated. So, I mean, that's a bad thing, but that's technology for you. Every year things get automated, things get easier, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, Jay. This has been such an amazing, seems like 10 minutes, but it's been already past the hour. It's an amazing presentation. And I just wanted to ask you before we close and say our goodbyes. Number one, we'd love to have you back and explore further into these technologies. So if you're available, I'll definitely send you an invitation. And our students have a lot of comments. Would you recommend, I think a lot of our students who are working professionals, if they were to design their own website, where would you recommend them to go? I mean, for example, would you use WordPress for them? Because I know we use WordPress with our new website so that everybody at AIU can participate. Would that be one of the suggestions? What else would you suggest for them to get started? Maybe something more simple or more automated?
Right then. So for website development, once again, let me get a white page here. I'm sorry, I keep drawing things when I'm explaining. I'm just used to it. I'm sorry. I would, if you are a newcomer, then definitely WordPress is a good first step. Maybe for the first few hours, not more than that. Like if you want to build a personal website or something, it is all click and drag and drop. And just to make the point clear, a lot of my own personal websites are actually running on WordPress, even though I'm a developer. Because there are times when you just want a reliable, easy to manage website. So like my website is my personal website. It's on WordPress. You can see here, the logo is right there. So there are a lot of developers who they would shame me publicly sometimes. Oh, you're a developer. You can't build your own website. What's wrong with you, Jay? Who gave you that award from Microsoft? Get out of here. People do that, I don't care. Sometimes simplicity is good in life. You don't want to complicate everything. Now, some things should be complex, but some other things should be simple. So yes, WordPress is a good first step for any person who wants to get a taste of the goods. It's like in India, when we go to a sweet shop, the shopkeeper is like, come on, man, eat this, eat that. He'll give you a lot of samples. We are very generous in India when it comes to food. You can take what you want, but then he'll only give you one piece though. Second piece is not free. So WordPress is like, get a taste of web development, build a website, put some images, impress your friends, impress yourself, stuff like that. But then immediately, yes, once you get a handle on things, I would strongly recommend the standard HTML, JavaScript, CSS grind. So that is warranted, yes. Ricardo, does that answer your question? If you have more questions,
yes, absolutely. The other question would be, okay, what about the backend? If you wanted to try the backend, is there somewhere that you would recommend? Like, look, go here. It's going to automate 90% of it for you, and little by little, like WordPress, but for the backend.
Right then. So the backend stuff, that is going to remain a beast. Yeah, I do not believe there's a way to automate that yet, which I think is another reason why I'm a backend developer, because front end, it keeps getting automated every year. I don't want to lose my job or money making abilities. So
what about the I mean, I haven't tried it. I did try Chat GPT, and that definitely is very powerful.
Yes.
I had heard that there's some AI generated programming that you can kind of say what you want and it'll kind of program it for you. Like, if we wanted to experiment with one of those tools, what tool would that be?
Right then. So there are two well-known tools which you can use if you want to take some AI help for coding. Okay. So first step is, of course, Chat GPT. For some reason today, the sites are down, at least from India. It's not working. I hope they have fixed it. Yeah, there you go. It's not working in India. Some maintenance things going on. But if you want to take help from...
There was an article in the news today that the Chat GPT passed an MBA exam at Wharton College.
I think that would happen, Dr. Edward. I'm not surprised at all, because what is happening is, my theory on that is, ultimately what ChatGPT does is it has been trained, in machine learning, we call this thing called training. What it literally means is they feed all the data in the world that they can get a hands on, and they crunch it. It's like Sherlock Holmes. If you read the Sherlock Holmes stories, he says there are no new crimes. Every crime has already been committed. Sherlock Holmes is not doing something magical. It's just that he spent 10 years looking up and reading all the crimes in the world. So, which is why when a new crime comes, he's like, what else is new? Because he's already heard about it. So AI, what is literally doing a Sherlock Holmes. So obviously the ChatGPT guys have gotten a handle on all the textbooks, everything written for the last 30, 40 years, and fed it to ChatGPT. And they've also been feeding it all kind of English literature stuff. So when you think about it, we should not be surprised at all that it's passing exams, because, I mean, come on, let's think about it. Like, if an average student can pass, I mean, every course in every university is designed so that the average human being can pass it. No university wants students to fail every exam that's given to them. So universities, they make exams so that students with a limited amount of knowledge as well should be able to pass. So when you take that into the consideration and you consider that they've been building ChatGPT for 10 plus years with billions of dollars in funding, I am not surprised at all, sir. And this is, as people have said, it is going to create problems for faculties. I mean, it might make life easy for students for a few months before faculties become smart, because that's what faculties do. We get smarter as well. It's not like we are dead. So there you go, sir. I'm not surprised at all.
We have a philosophy and political class that we're going to have to discuss a new method for running the economy, which is a science-based economy, a technology-based economy, where we only need 10-12% of the population to work. Everything else is automated. And everybody that's doing logistics, transportation, which is 20% of the workforce, can move on to something more productive, more fulfilling, spiritual, transcendence. Who knows what the future will hold? But I think we're going to have to reinvent the use of the labors of humanity with all these technologies.
That is true, Ricardo. This will hopefully, because there are some. I know a little bit of economics, right? And I'm from India as well. I grew up in sheer poverty. I'll go into that some other day. So I know how these things, like, for example, right now, as I said, the deployment example, we used to have teams and teams doing deployment day and night. Now those jobs are eliminated. And as you said, ChatGPT and another guy, ChatGPT is down in India. I don't know why, but there is another guy. I'm sure he's running. So if I go to this guy is going to be the game changer for developers, at least developers who can afford it. So GitHub Copilot is also powered by ChatGPT. So there you go. It's also from Microsoft.
Okay.
So they already have a game in that. This is supported by ChatGPT in the backend. So this person can actually write code. And a lot of times it can write code better than me and most developers.
Oh, wow.
So
well, that's the same thing that happened to me with ChatGPT. It writes better than me. In 10, 15 minutes of working with it, it would have taken me 2 hours to write something so nice and so good. So lots of changes happening.
But that's the thing, Ricardo, the way I see it, even though I'm from India, I know how this is going to affect, especially people from, from developing nations stuff. Someone like me should obviously be worried about this. There are some stuff going on, but personally, because a lot of students are asking me this question, like, sir, like in my Indian batches, especially in Indian batches, they're very worried because if this can write better code than me, obviously my students can't compete with it because they don't know how to code at all. It doesn't matter how many years they spent in the university. But ultimately, you know what happens with computers? Even this AI thing, now I have two choices right now. I already, spent some time with it. I was part of the Microsoft trial. I participated in it. I've seen what it can do. So now is an opportunity for me is to simply, instead of trying to, what to say, you can't beat it. So my plan is simple. I'm going to join it. I mean, it's not that expensive. It's $10 a month. So my plan is very simple. This year, I'm going to upgrade all my projects with the AI code. That is my plan.
Excellent. And I agree with you. I think your place is safe. And I think a lot of people's place is safe simply because ChatGPT, as powerful as it is only as good as the inputs that we put into it. So
yes.
I've done many tests, and if you just ask for a generic thing, you get a nicely written generic thing. But if you spend 10, 15 minutes giving ChatGPT what you want, so you say, okay, write a letter for blah, 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 but include the following highlights or points. What ChatGPT produces when you give it 5, 10 minutes of bullet points, it's 10 times better. So you still need someone that's going to be able to give it the insight a little bit.
That's true, Ricardo. So as always, it's like you have a car and Vin Diesel has a car, but he can obviously drive it better in all those movies, simply because he spent more time learning how to drive that car. So same thing with these tools. Those guys who are smart enough, they start learning how to use these tools, they will be able to write better code. So it won't replace them, rather it will supplant them. But as you said, it's a good thing, despite my own reservations, mainly because I'm from India, I believe this is a good thing because at least now people can finally move on from all the boring, redundant, repetitive, mundane things, in the programming world and do something better with their lives.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's a great place to end it there. And I wanted to thank once again our presenter, Jay Bachalhali Radhakrishnan, and all of our students here today. Thank you so very much for joining us, and have a blessed rest of your day. We'll see you back again sometime soon, we hope, Jay. And of course, tomorrow at the same time, we do have scheduled another presenter, and I think it's going to be tough to beat today's presentation, Jace. But so thank you for lifting the bar up, and
thank you,
everyone. Take care. Great to see you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly.
Be blessed, everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
nice
you very
moment.
much.
Ciao,
Thank
everyone.
you. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank
you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Be loved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Akira, thank you. Lerato,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle,
Thank you so much.
Godfrey.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Gerardo.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Emmanuel, thank you. Shaban.
Thank you.
Ciao, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.